Spring training baseball starts today. I mean, real baseball, not just throwing and catching, but an actual spring training game. And that is awesome. Tell you also some things that you're going to be excited about so far this camp. Shota Imanaga has found his velo. Now we probably know why he had the drop off in production last year. We're going to get into that. Kevin Alcantara is another guy that was dealing with an injury. He's back and ready to battle for that outfield position that the Cubs, and I'm sure he hopes he wins. And another guy turning heads, which we've talked about on this channel, is Jaxon Wiggins. And the Cubs and all the players are seeing what Jaxon Wiggins is all about. And we're going to tell you what to expect. And also a bobblehead doll that doesn't really look like the guy it's supposed to look like, but we figured out who it does look like. And I still want one. All that right here on the Cubs Baseball channel. Like, subscribe, thumbs up, hit the bell, get in the comments section, and let's start the party. What do you say, everybody? Mick Gillespie, Cubs Baseball channel. And again, it is great to see you guys as we talk about a game. We got real baseball today. Well, it's not really real, but it is baseball. And we'll get to kind of get a look at what the Cubs have in their farm system, some of the guys that they signed that they hope maybe will be there as far as depth pieces. And we'll get a little Jameson Taillon. He's the guy that gets to throw the first pitch for the Cubs this year. All right, well, let me start with Shota Imanaga, because one of the issues that Imanaga had was he had a drop off in his velocity. And it was concerning, but the Cubs, they felt good about re-signing him. And, they re-signed him. So he's been a Cub now for 3 years. We weren't sure if he was going to be back or not, but he is. And according to sources out in Arizona, Craig Counsell basically said that Shota Imanaga's throwing harder because his hamstring is healthy. And if you remember last year, he had the injury, and maybe that caused bad mechanical issues. And maybe we'll get the guy that in 2024 went 15-3 and had a 2.91 ERA and was a Major League Baseball All-Star and one of the best players on the team, right? And he had a top 5 finish in National League Rookie of the Year and Cy Young Award. And then last year it was so bad that the Cubs had him available for Game 5 against the Brewers in the playoffs, and they didn't pitch him. But he was giving up a lot of home runs, and I don't want to say that he was that far off, but his fastball, which was never really fantastic, but it was good enough, had dropped to, just basically his worst velocity in 2025. I think it went down to 91, and he needed it to be like 93, 94. And so him having that back should help. And he gave up 31 home runs last year and had a 30% ground ball rate, and it was I don't know. So velocity was from 92 to 90, I think is what the four-seamer fell to, and it became a lot more hittable. So at the end of the day, what really matters is that he's back. They feel good about where he is, and that's why they re-signed him, because they could have gone out and spent that same money on Zach Gallen, but they didn't, and they kept him, and now we know why. So we'll see, and hopefully he has a big spring training. I think he will, and then that'll lead to, obviously a ace type season that the Cubs are hoping they get from him. Before we get into the next guy I want to talk about today, let me remind you guys, it's Sunday. We got Jody Davis back for another edition of Beer Money. Yeah, that's what we pay him, and that's why the show's called Beer Money. He's got some great stories, and we've also got some more great stories we haven't even talked about on our podcast. So we're going to get into some Cubs baseball. Obviously, he played with some of the all-time great Cubs, Ryne Sandberg and Rick Sutcliffe and and Keith Moreland. I mean, you can go through Sean Dunston. He was there when Harry Caray was the broadcaster. We talk about that on this week's show. So make sure that you check that out on Sunday with Cubs Hall of Famer Jody Davis. All right, second thing I want to talk about. Kevin Alcantara is ready. Now, you guys know that Alcantara is a 6'6" outfielder known as the Jaguar, and he was acquired from the Yankees in the Anthony Rizzo trade in 2021. And he, at one point, was a top 5 prospect. When you look at the scouts' grade for him, they grade him, 40, 45 as far as his hitting ability goes, 50 to 60 in power, which I think he's got raw power. I think eventually he's a big guy, big lanky guy. I think he'll eventually be able to work on that. But he's got the physical tools, right? Lean, athletic, has room to grow. I think a lot of scouts look at that. Is his body done growing, or can he put muscle on there? He's tall. He glides to the ball, and I think that the impression that he left on the Cubs last year was one that gives them hope that he could come in and compete for a spot. And the Cubs want him, I think, to win that spot. I don't think that they're looking at him going, no, we want to send him back to the minor leagues. It would be a good organization if he's able to outlast the likes of Chas McCormick and Dylan Carlson and Justin Dean and Tyler Austin. I mean, all these guys that are battling for a spot, right? But Alcantara is on the 40-man roster, and I think he's got options left, but I'm not 100% sure. I would have to look at that. So if he does, I think maybe he's like 1 year, but off the top of my head, I think he does. But so that could send him back. But Alcantara started to get healthy, and when he does, man, he's a pretty good player. Craig Counsell loved him last year. I remember Sammy Sosa talking about him, thinking that he's a good player. He's been dealing with some sports hernia issues that kind of hounded him last year, but he had surgery to repair that, and now he's healthy and he's ready to go, man. And for the Cubs' sake, you hope that they get the Alcantara that was a guy who is anonymously a slow starter. They get the guy who is the player that I'll just give you. I saw him in Double-A. He couldn't get a hit for I don't know, I don't remember what the exact stats were. Just I think he's got options, but I'm not 100% sure without typing it. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, he does, right? But he couldn't get a hit, and then all of a sudden the guy got he was 1 for 30, and then all of a sudden he was 15 of 27. It was crazy, right? So he's really streaky. He's one of these guys who gets off to a slow start sometimes. So it'll be interesting to see what his spring training's like. But I think he's got a legitimate chance to make the Cubs, and him turning heads during spring training is something that's going to help him a lot, and that's what the Cubs need. Now, the next guy I want to talk about is Jaxon Wiggins. Now, I'm not surprised at all that Jaxon Wiggins is catching a lot of headlines at spring training. I mean, okay, same scout grading, right? His fastball is 60 to 70. I put it in the 70 scout if I'm scouting. I mean, I think he's got an elite fastball. He can get it up to 101 miles an hour, and it's got movement to it, right? It sits 94, 98, but it's just got a ton of movement. He's kind of like a wiry type guy, and the ball, nothing that he throws goes straight, right? So really good slider. That's 85 to 90 miles an hour. I'd say that's probably a second best pitch. I'd put it somewhere in the 60 category if I was grading it. He's got a decent changeup. I think that if his changeup got better, he could get a lot better, right? But he throws that upper 80s. He's got a curveball that's not great, but still developing, and his command is something that needs to get better, right? But he's got the most important thing, and that's the fastball, right? With really significant vertical break. And at 6'6", I mean, it's he's coming off the mound and this thing's right on top of you, right? And then it's, obviously his cut slider is something that I think will really work in the big leagues, right? the weakness that he has is being able to pitch because he's been hurt a lot, right? So, he had Tommy John surgery and he came back from that. And then the Cubs really took, a lot of time with him where in his, 2 seasons, he's pitched 137 innings, right? Last year, there was a time when, he's on the roster, in the minor leagues and he's not pitching at all. And you're just like, man, what's going on here? And I think that it's just because, they're obviously trying to take it real slow with him. But, after Cade Horton last year kind of stepped up into that, hey, I can do this role. And all of a sudden you got something really good. Jaxon Wiggins is that guy so far this year. So the 24-year-old has been impressive. Maybe for some of these guys like Craig Counsell, it might be the first time that they really got a look at what the kid can do just because, you're out there with him every day and he's in the minor leagues. You're not watching him play in person, you're watching film. But, Craig Counsell was like, basically, if you watch him, he's throwing very professional appearances in his bullpens and his live BP, very professional. So he's basically saying, hey, I like what I see with this guy. And, and then just talking about, going out there and stacking all these things up and executing. I don't know if Jaxon Wiggins is going to make the team out of spring training, but I do think that he's a guy who the Cubs are looking at and going, okay, this could be one of the first guys that we bring in when we start to kind of make some moves here. Because you're constantly bringing guys in and out. Because of injuries. And then, you play a lot of games and you need pitchers, so look for him to be someone that the Cubs rely on if he stays healthy and does the things that he's capable of doing. But I'd say, and I thought about this from the beginning, he's definitely one of those players that you're looking at during this camp and you're going, hey, this is a guy who everyone should be excited about. And if you're there watching games, this is a guy that you hope pitches in one of your games because he's the next Cade Horton. All right, final thing on today's show. I threw this up here. The Cubs released their promotional schedule. This year, the promotional slogan is this, right? So this is the Bobblehead doll. And I kept looking at it, and I'm like, okay, so August 30th, by the way, we're going to be there. We're going to be in Wrigleyville. We're going to be with Jody Davis, our friend that hosts Beer Money. We're going to be there with him. And that's the day that he gets inducted, officially gets his blue jacket in the Cubs Hall of Fame. But look at this bobblehead doll. It's supposed to be Harry Caray, but it looks like Johnny Knoxville. The bobblehead looks just like Johnny Knoxville. So I still want one, but somebody else put that out there. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh my gosh, it does look like Johnny Knoxville. So, but Cubs, if the Cubs marketing people see this, don't take it personally. I'm not trying to pick on your bobblehead doll. Whoever in China made that must have saw Johnny Knoxville because that's not Harry Caray. Let me see if I can find a picture of Johnny Knoxville. All right, so before you guys look at me and go, hey, what are you talking about? All right, so there's Johnny Knoxville or Harry Caray. I mean, make him bigger for you. Okay, there's Harry Caray. And here's Johnny Knoxville. Look at that. Maybe whoever sent that to China sent. Johnny Knoxville Caray. Let's just look at that. Oh my God. Whoever figured that out, I appreciate that. I stole it, but it's so funny. Anyway, we'll be there on August 30th with Jody Davis, and we hope you guys will be too. But check out the show, Beer Money. That'll be on Sunday when we do our second installment. I already got some ammo for the third installment. But we talked about a bunch of cool stuff. Anyway, look for tomorrow the great former Cubs beat writer Mark Gonzalez to be on the channel, and Tony Andracki coming up, and me. But like, subscribe, thumbs up, hit the bell. Thank you guys for being here. Get in the comments section. Also, the hats are available. Check out the let me see if I got ad for that on here. We'll have one out for you soon, but I know some of you guys have been very patient with these right here. We got them for you, and I can't wait for you to get them too. Thank you, and go Cubs. Have a great